Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Dave Bacon feeling a little under the weather, so doing this from home, but still feeling just fine to bring you today's show on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast will join us. We'll talk some Cavs as well as Browns, and that's where we begin, talking Browns and the Associated Press's All-Pro team out. Two Browns on the first team, Joel Bitonio, first team guard, and Myles Garrett, first team edge rusher. Also on the first team, or actually on the second team, is guard Wyatt Teller. So the Browns placed three on the All-Pro first team and second team, according to the Associated Press. Let's welcome in Mark Munch Bishop from 1350 AM, The Gambler, also News Radio, WTAM 1100. Munch, appreciate the time as always. Three Browns, well-deserved All-Pro honors. Just goes to show there's a lot of talent on this team.
Oh, David, you had to toss that in, didn't you? By the way, good afternoon to you. Yeah, there is a lot of talent on the team, and I know we're going to address that here shortly. But, people always talk about Pro Bowl this, Pro Bowl that. Come on. I don't need the Pro Bowl. I need the All-Pros, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. I mean, Myles, no-brainer. Also, Joel Bitonio, no-brainer. And Wyatt Teller had to be knocking on that door of first team also on the second team. And we know that Nick Chubb is a world-class talent. We know that Nick Chubb could take it to the house anytime he wants. Well, one of the reasons, because of the guys in the trenches in front of him.
Yeah, without question. And, two of those three All-Pros, first team, second team are on the line. The other one, Myles Garrett. Munch, you have a little bit of perspective as I do. How disappointing was 2021? In my mind, just because of where this team was, what the expectations were, most disappointing season for the Browns since they came back in 99.
You know what? Since they've come back in 99, 100%. In fact, I'm even going to take it further and say perhaps one of the top five most disappointing seasons. Sure, when you go to the AFC Championship game and you have, Red Right 88 or the fumble or the drive, I mean, that's going to mess you up too. Of course, the drive, we won't even get into those, okay, in Cleveland and not a championship game. But the bottom line is this, is that, of course, you got me thinking deeply, is that I had this team at 12-5. I'm usually the guy who's under the total because I know things can happen. I had no idea things would be as they were. But you know what, David? I had a harbinger of things to come because people say I'm boring, and so be it. I love being boring, okay? But I'm like Kevin Stefanski. Do you remember number one? Kevin Stefanski warned the team, please, more than 50% of the teams do not go back to the postseason from the year before. And number two, let's play one game at a time. Here we have Jarvis Landry, one of the leaders of the team, telling us there's a Super Bowl team in August. That rubbed me the wrong way. You don't talk about it, okay? You go out and win each game. And then the one that hit me too was after the Patriots game. That was a curb stomping. That was embarrassing. Anthony Walker comes out and says, you know what? Just got to remind you, we're a playoff team. Well, you know what? Not when you get beaten like that. So those little things add up. I really feel that there was some delusion involved, and these guys thought they just needed to show up, and we know that's wrong.
The other thing is the old saying is it's much more difficult to go from a team that's 500 or above, that fringe playoff team, to the elite level. And I think that's what we're seeing. The Browns are trying to move from a team that expects to be in the playoffs to a team that is in that elite level in the conference.
And you know what? Right now, where are they in the conference? Well, they're looking up at a team from Cincinnati, and I have joked on more than one occasion, is that, Cincinnati, bunch of Cleveland wannabes. My gosh, their airport isn't even in Cincinnati, it's in Kentucky. However, they played good football this year, and look what the Browns did to them. I thought that was the watershed moment down in Cincinnati, but Joe Burrow and his troops proved that, you know what, we can get it done. And David, think about this. We all were chastised, not just us, when I say all, media people, fans, which, okay, I'll put on the back burner for now, but the quote-unquote folks who get paid to do this, it's like, how could they take a wide receiver and their first round draft choice. Well, now we saw why they took a wide receiver. The offensive weapons were unbelievable for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and they're young, and they're going to be together for a while, so that's something that the Browns are going to have to deal with. Let's go to this. How did the season go wrong? Where did it go wrong? Why couldn't they get it back on the rails?
Well, number one, and again, you cannot, point one finger. Quarterback play was not good. All right, I'm going to say that. Number two, complimentary play with it was not good. It was, when I say complimentary play, catching the football was an aberration, all right? Especially when big catches were needed. I know these guys are fancy. Come on. And I know there's a tight end that everybody loves that I do not. That started celebrating a touchdown before he caught the football, and hence he dropped it. So those are two things there. But I'm going to say this too. As the season went on, the defense definitely picked it up, no matter how poorly they played early on. I mean, come on. We look at the Chargers game. Chargers receivers were catching footballs. If you took a 8x10 glossy, there was no Browns in the picture, okay? They improved. They improved in a hurry. But the bottom line, too, is play calling was abysmal. It lacked creativity. And what little gas they had to put the pedal to the metal in the first half, well, they did nothing in the second half to augment that or supplement that. Plus, I still say the best player on the team on offense is Nick Chubb, and I have him number one overall on the team. Miles right behind him. Why is he on the bench with 2 minutes left in the game? Why is he on the bench with in situations like that? We know for a fact that he could when he touches the football at any time, he can take it to the house. Injuries on the line. Every team has injuries, so you got to fight through them. And something else, David, we always talk about depth, and we went into the season saying, wow, offensive line is deep, defensive line is deep, and you can't have 8, $6-7 million guys on the offensive line, but you have to have 7 or 8 viable starters on that line. And you know what? They did not. And that was proven when James Hudson tried to go up against Watt, and that scheme was awful too. So, boy, everything goes. There's a lot of ingredients to the recipe for failure this year.
Yeah, and I think you touched on some of it is play calling, quarterback play, wide receiver play. There's plenty of that to go around. All right. Let's take a look at how the playoff quarterbacks were acquired. And this is kind of interesting. And, again, it's Spot Rack. And when you look at it, significant number are draft. Cardinals, Bills, Bengals, Cowboys, Packers, Chiefs, Raiders, Patriots, Eagles, Steelers are draft. Trade for the Rams, 49ers. Titans, free agency for the Buccaneers. It's also kind of interesting that a couple of those, being the Buccaneers, the free agency, Tom Brady, we know all about that. The trade, Rams are a dark horse, and the Titans are the top seed. So they went out and got them kind of late. You look at it, and a lot of those guys aren't the number one overall picks. But, again, it comes down to identifying the right quarterback. Where I'm going with this, Munch, the Browns have to get it right. Is Baker Mayfield the guy that they got to figure that out pretty quickly?
You know what? They need to figure it out real quick. In fact, a year ago, right now, you, me, I say just about everyone, even the Baker haters, alrighty, that when he has a good game, and they're few and far in between this year, don't get me wrong, he has to play much, much better. They'll find an excuse why all of a sudden he was good. But we thought we had him. So that's what I want to know. Did he regress that much? And there are reasons why that he played poorly. Some of it has to be on him, but there has to be other factors. You just don't go from being a viable quarterback. All right. And there was some nonsense this year, too, we'll address as we go along, is that, the bottom fell out as far as quarterback play that we saw this year. And that is an understatement at times.
Yeah. And this year with the Browns shows you just how important quarterback play is in the NFL. And that's not to put all of the blame on Baker Mayfield. There's a lot that goes into it. But you need good quarterback play, especially late in games. The fourth quarter was extremely disappointing this year for the Browns.
David, thank you. In fact, in spite of the injuries, and that's another thing here, and I'm still, what do we use in social media, SMH? Shaking my head or scratching my head, whichever you so desire, is that, Okay, we have $6 million into a backup quarterback. Everybody always loves the backup, right? Haven't we said that backup quarterback is the most popular person in Cleveland every year, no matter who the starting quarterback is for the most part? Well, you have him still horrified and to a point disgusted at times that Baker was trotted out there. Please, you ask me if I'm going to play. We ask you if you're going to play. You have a flu, you have this or that. Sure, we're going to play. When I say play, come out and do shows that do what we do the very, very best, okay? No one wants to get benched. People in the back of their mind are always thinking of Wally Pipp and Lou Gehrig, okay? No matter what your sport is. But the bottom line is this, is that it defies logic. No matter what the doctor said, no matter what Baker said, that he was trotted out there week after week after week. And I'm going to tell you this, and I don't mind sharing this on this show, because I treasure this show and I'm a big, big fan of yours, is that I was told there were times that he hobbled off the field, hobbled onto the field. The players weren't sure how he stood upright in the huddle. Well, that tells me something's wrong in a big, big way.
Yeah, I agree. And at some point in time, if that is the case, you need to protect Baker from himself. Mark Munch Bishop, 1350 AM, The Gambler, WTAM News Radio 1100 and Iron. Step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about Baker Mayfield, of all things. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Dave Bacon feeling a little under the weather, so doing this from home. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the offense, quarterback play, and the wide receivers.
Hi, my name's Ernie. I'm 70 years old, lifelong Browns fan. I would love to see the Browns get to the Super Bowl before I die. I lived through all the heartache of the years past. But right now, I think we're not giving Baker Mayfield the credit that he deserves. I would love it if somebody would go back to this season and see when exactly all of the drop passes occurred. Were they drive killers? Sure, he had some interceptions, but what about before the interceptions? Were they first downs? Could he have come back if somebody didn't drop the ball, if somebody didn't fumble the ball? That's all I got. And there's always next year.
All right, we appreciate the voicemail, Ernie, and you sound great for 70. I hope I sound like that in a few years when I reach 70. Munch, there's a couple of things to unpack in there. The drops, yeah, absolutely, they were effective. This wide receiving core, I overestimated it greatly. I think that was probably almost as disappointing as the quarterback play and probably figured into it more than we're saying.
you know what? Number one, Baker was not good. And so hence, what is it? The most important position in any sport is the quarterback. So we are going to point the finger at him. Yeah, and I will say that. No, he was not good. Decisions were not good at times. And I'm just going to leave everything out of it too, on the outside. However, something I said from day one was, David, don't fall out of your chair, okay? Is that the team was better with Odell Beckham Jr. Now, he could not be here any longer. Guess what? The guy's smart. I'm shocked he's not going to go into a law career later, because to have his dad do that video, you can't have a guy around any longer, especially since he didn't apologize or come back or address that to Baker, okay? But the bottom line is the drops were horrific. The drops came at horrific times. Yes, the drops were drive killers. Yes, the drops were by guys that should not be dropping passes, okay? And definitely, does that play into your mind today? Yeah, I see the guy open, but he's dropped 2 of the 3 balls I've thrown to him today. And we're not going to get into names because we know who they are. You know what? It's everyone. It's even the number 1 receiver on the team, number 1, number 2 tight ends, number 3 tight ends on the team. We know who they are. But David, what a great caller that was too, because I want to say something. I go to the wall for Nick Chubb. I know you would too. But we flash back to the Kansas City game. And you know what? I'm flashing back to Nick's fumble in that game. That was game number 1 of the season, okay? And when he coughed it up, they showed a shot of him on the sideline, staring down at the ground, just upset to no being with himself. Yeah, the Jamie Gillen dropping the punt and, boy, doing whatever he did with it. I don't know if he thought it was a different game than American football. It was horrendous. But that fumble played into that loss too. And for it to come to Nick Chubb, it was horrifying.
Yeah, you know, the other thing that you have to figure out, and the fact that the Browns have said that they're going to do it again next year, and that moving into the offseason, Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback. Very stark contrast to what the Colts are saying about Carson Wentz. The thing that tells me is that shoulder probably bothered them a little bit more than they were letting on. Now, it wasn't all of the problems. I don't think you can completely say everything was on the shoulder. There are some things that the Browns have to figure out with Baker Mayfield. It's the scheme. It's a lot of things. But I think that shoulder was more of a problem than they were letting on.
Dave, you're going to laugh that I don't know the whole song. We all sang it in grade school, okay. But isn't the leg bone connected to the thigh bone's connected to the hip bone's connected to the backbone? You know for a fact, in a game like football, number 1, you get hit hard, your whole body's going to hurt, okay? No matter what side it is, where it is on down the line. And you know for a fact that if he's throwing a football, especially if he's rolling to the side, to his left, to the left shoulder, it's got to affect him. Once again, I'm glad you pointed out, we're not giving carte blanche here. We're not wiping the slate clean, because there were bad decisions. There were some bad throws in a big way, but there's no doubt that was another, as I said earlier, ingredient to the recipe for failure.
All right, let's take a look at some of the potential free agent quarterbacks. The Browns have said they're riding with them. This might be why they're saying they're riding with them. If you look at these, let's go through these. Teddy Bridgewater, I pass. What about you?
I pass on Bridgewater.
I pass on Brissett, Dalton, Fitzpatrick, Mariota, McCoy, Newton, Roethlisberger, Simeon, Taylor. I'm going to pass on Trubisky. That one I'm at least intrigued. I pass on Winston. I pass on Garoppolo, and I pass on Locke. What about you?
This is amazing. I want people to know we did not talk about this before the show. I pass on all of them too. The one, well, I say all of them, all but one, Mitchell still intrigues me. Now, not just because he's a kid from Mentor, okay? But to me, Mitchell, we've seen it. Matt Nagy was an awful head coach. He's a quarterback killer, all right? And when you go back and look what Trubisky did compared to Dalton, compared to Foles, with the Bears, it was, man, hands down him. But isn't there one quarterback that we always dislike and one quarterback we want to get rid of? And one quarterback that doesn't need to be a part of this team any longer? Whether it's a backup, you know what? Say what you will, and I stand by him. Brian Hoyer had this team 7-4. Yes, was he an all-pro quarterback? Absolutely not. Was he a very good quarterback? No. Was he a good quarterback? He was a 7-4 quarterback, okay? The fans didn't like him. They had to bring Johnny Donkey in, and that's what happened there. And that happens in a lot of cities. I believe Mitchell Trubisky was a victim of that.
Yeah, I agree with you after I've seen Matt Nagy post Mitchell Trubisky. That's kind of the I'm with you. I think what the struggles that Matt Nagy has had since Trubisky left make him more appealing to get a second chance, because it is a guy that you kind of scratch your head and go, man, all right. What do you want the Browns to do with that first round pick? Let me ask you that. So it's 13th, I believe, is what it is. What do you want? Who do you want? I know where you're going with this too.
This is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer to me. And by the way, I don't want to trade Paul Warfield to get Mike Phipps, okay? Cut and dry. That's not going to happen. I'm taking us back in time, aren't I? Come on. It's got to be a wide receiver 100-fold. Now, is it Garrett Wilson? Is it Olave? And, I'm a Buckeye honk, homer, and show. I got to think about them. However, Bell from Purdue, pretty damn good receiver. Another guy that was a former Buckeye, although I think his injury in the national championship game is going to hurt him, of course, is Mr. Williams. Is that he's there too? Yeah, receiver, hands down, non-paralleled. Then you need to get a receiver in free agency. Then you need to draft another receiver. Come on. Is Ray Farmer still consulting this team, talking about receivers being no different than offensive linemen?
We'll see. I think they will address it. They've been pretty good about identifying needs and going and getting them. So I'm guessing on the checklist this year is upgrade the receiver room pretty significantly. The other thing is they've said, they're going to ride with Baker Mayfield. They expect him to be back as a starting quarterback. Having said that, Munch, I view Andrew Berry as a really good young GM. The job of a young, good GM is to look at all the options. I think he will try to exhaust all of the options that are out there for quarterback.
You have to. There is no doubt. There is no hands down. Something dangerous, though. And some folks have said to me, will you bring somebody in to have competition with Baker? Well, if you've just said, we're going with Baker as our starter now, you could change that if something is presented to you and you study and you look at something, or if there's somebody else out there, one of the quote-unquote elites. You know what? We didn't talk about him. He's not a free agent. What about Aaron Rodgers, all right? Will they do something of that nature? Matty Ryan? No. Matty Ice had a great career. That's it. He's had a great career, okay? So is there something there to explore? People say to me, Aaron Rodgers isn't coming here. You don't know that, okay? Actually, I think he's going to Pittsburgh, and we will have a lot of fun if that indeed happens. But, yeah, you have to explore them all, even if you feel Baker is a guy, even though Baker was on fire last year as you came down. Because we know quarterbacks, they can go quickly. A lot of it's up here. A lot of it's in the arm, too.
All right, before we go to break and switch our focus to Cavs, I don't know that you could bring in a guy to compete with Baker Mayfield. And I don't think it's Baker Mayfield. I think you don't want to do that because when you have two quarterbacks, you tend to have none.
David, you hit it on the head. I've heard that from some other media, heard that from some folks around the league. No, you do not have a quarterback competition here. You want a backup quarterback, and you're going to laugh at this, that Baker is the guy. You want a backup that's not going to cost you what Case Keenum cost you. Oh, there's another guy that Browns, and I'll call it the Browns rabble. A lot of the fans, and unfortunately, the brass to the Browns listen to the fans a little too much. There's a guy by the name of Colt McCoy who has acquitted himself, is going to go down as a guy that's had a great career as a backup. And you know what? There is no shame in being a backup. I'll never forget walking off the field early when the Browns came back, when Mike Tomczak was still with the Steelers. And, of course, people are screaming at him, Tomczak, your uniform's clean. Tomczak, you're this, you're that. Tomczak. And he looked up and said, you know what? I'm holding this clipboard. I'm cashing checks that are worth $2 million a year. I'll take that any day of the week. A good backup is just, oh, my gosh, it's just so special for the team and for your starter, too, because they help the starter.
Yeah, without question. And you know what? It's great work if you can get it. Mark Munch Bishop and I are going to step aside, take a quick time up. On the other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Trade deadline less than a month away. We will talk Cavs and the NBA when we return. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue here on Sports4CLE. Time to turn our attention to the Cavaliers trade deadline. Closing in February 10th is the trade deadline. The Cavs, for the first time in recent memory, probably looking to add a piece instead of unload a contract or something. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Don't get Joe Harris. Leave Joe Harris where he at. We got the right squad. Keep our team the way it is, and we're going to do good. You trade anybody, get Kyrie back here.
Oh, my. Munch, there is no way that I want Kyrie back or that the Cavs want Kyrie back. More problems than a fifth grade math book, as they say.
You know what? Number one, you just summed it up. I don't need to say a word. I know that Kobe Altman, I know that Mike Gansey, I know that J.B. Bickerstaff. Oh, I know that Van Gilbert and everybody involved with the Cavaliers. Now think about this. What an unbelievable talent Kyrie Irving is, all righty? Just superb. He's helped the Nets this year, hasn't he? No, absolutely not. And again, I understand that, yes, Christmas is a holiday, okay? And Columbus found that the earth was round. We'll leave that aside. But the guy tears teams apart. Oh, he tore the Cavaliers apart. He blackmailed them. You trade me? When people say they should have worked something out. No, he said, trade me or I'm having my surgery. He forced his way out of Boston, too. Boston, come on, even with Tatum and Brown, they're not recovering as quickly as the Cavaliers are. Well, it's not quick recovery either from Kyrie being gone. Has not done a thing for the Nets this year in any way, shape, or form. Keep him away, stay away. Dang shame, though, because I love the game of basketball, and I enjoy watching him. But even to the point now, the way he is as a man has tainted me, even if he would be on the court to watch him.
Well, the other thing I would really wanted to chase him away as well. I mean, they were it was a young core that was growing, and they wanted nothing to do with Kyrie.
Think about that. You know what? Again, here's a talent that's as good as it gets in the NBA. And you're exactly right about that. Right now, no, there's not a place for him on this team. You look at the team, and we got to shout out J.B. Bickerstaff too. But David, think about this. In a positive light, we are talking about the Cavaliers. This basketball team is relevant, whether you're in Cleveland, whether you're in Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento, Phoenix, Milwaukee, New York City. The team is relevant again. JB has a lot to do with it. And you know what? It hasn't been an easy journey for them at all either, especially with the injuries, with COVID. Every team faces that. I realize that. But for the team to have pulled together as well as they have, it's just it's beautiful. It's a Michelangelo masterpiece.
All right, trade deadline closing in February 10th. ESPN.com. Let's take a look at some of the things that they think are potentials for the Cavs to look at. And so bench depth, first round picks, Colin Sexton, that's what to watch. Recent trade, they mentioned the Rondo deal. One of the things that they say that they're intrigued by is potentially trading the expiring contract of Ricky Rubio and a lottery protected first round pick to the Houston Rockets for Eric Gordon. Does that kind of deal interest you at all, Munch?
Did you know what? That one personally does not. All right. There are some that may. Will Gordon help this team? You know what? Just about anybody put into the system would help this team if they're an NBA quality player. And I understand too. You know what a dang shame is, David? Good chance we've seen the last of Ricky Rubio as a Cavalier. And my golly, that's heartbreaking, but reality is reality. Now, that one to me, you know, if it was a necessity, I would go ahead and do it. But right now, there's got to be something better.
Are you more interested in a younger guy that could be part of the core for a little bit? Gordon's 33, so he's basically a one-year deal. Are you more interested in like a Karis LeVert that's 26, 27? That way you have him moving forward.
What about a Buddy Hield? Now I know that he's coming off the bench in Sacramento, but he's not using a walker to get around these days too. And I'm glad you mentioned LeVert too. Central Ohio kid, once again, I don't care if he's a Cleveland kid, but he could play. Yeah, and that young fellow could play too. Drop down the age a little bit. People say, we got to get a vet. Didn't they get a vet when they got Rondo? Yeah, they got a vet in Rondo. And they have another vet making $30 million coming off the bench or starting. And I can't pay enough credit and tribute to the comeback that Kevin Love has made. Because, David, I'm watching him, and this looks like Kevin Love, his first few years in the league with Minnesota with the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I never saw that coming this year for Kevin Love. So points to him for embracing it. How important is it to try to add something at the trade deadline so that this young core, again, all these guys are 22, 23, some of them are 21, so that they experience at least one series of playoff basketball, if not more, because it's different. And the people that have covered it know that it's different. And the players will tell you it's different. How important is it for these young guys to get a taste of playoff basketball to see what it is?
You are a wise man. It's hugely important. Even if you would go in and get cleaned out, okay? Because it is a different level. It is a different gear. But you know what? The way this team plays defense is that this team could go in. There's certain matchups I'd say absolutely not. But this team could go in to a first-round series and win a series. So I'm going to put it this way. If the Cavaliers brain trust, including Coach Bickerstaff, they feel that they can get better by pushing somebody forward, by bringing somebody else in, by all means, you always try to get better. And once again, fans, you got to chill. David, you heard it. I heard it. People were worried. And again, love the guy and love his desire, but people worried about being beaten by Valentine in Utah. No, he's not going to beat you, okay? That was something that needed to be done. And the Cavaliers did it as a piece to get Rondo. If you can get better, you bring that player in.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this team is going to be a really tough matchup in a playoff series. It has the ability to be because of the way they play defense, and that that tends to travel. All right, let's take a look at this. This is really interesting. The most contested shots at the rim by players, so rim protectors, if you will. from basketballnews.com. Jared Allen is the best at it, 46.6. You see, he's tied with the Greek Freak, Giannis. Then there's JaVale McGee. Evan Mobley is fourth, and Jared Jackson fifth. So two of the Cavs and two of the really young Cavs that are going to be around for a long time are the best rim protectors in all of basketball. When you're on there with Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, if you will, you're in pretty good company. This, Munch, is why I think they're a tough matchup in a playoff series, a 7-game series. It's going to be gum-scraping defense when you go up against them.
100-fold. And something else, David. I love the moniker, the rim protector, but I want to tell you something else that Allen, that Mobley, they bring to the table. They're not only rim protectors, they're paint protectors. When I coached basketball, I always told kids, somebody comes in the paint, give them a little jar, give them a little push, give them a little shove. They're coming into your house to take food off your table. But you look at Mobley will jump out on you on the perimeter too, not even let you get to the rim to start with. And that puts the fear of the maker in you too. The defense has been unbelievable. Guys jumping passing lanes. And why is that? Because somebody may be hesitant to go to the hole and drive because of Allen and Mobley. I want you to check something out too if you have time. Flashback to Jared Allen as a rookie with the Nets. They're playing the Philadelphia 76ers. He gave Joel Embiid, not one of my favorites, okay? He's got the basketball IQ of a banana slug. I want my 7-foot guy launching threes with 30 seconds left in the game, okay, and you're down by 2 points? Absolutely not. But Jared Allen, I'm glad I made you smile. Jared Allen gave him all he could handle, and that included getting some elbows to the back of the head. And no way were they going to whistle Embiid against a young fellow by the name of Jared Allen. You know, how delightful is that? And I'm also glad that J.B. Bickerstaff, when he got the 7-footers out there, said, you know what? People say there's not a place for them. Oh, there's a place for them. Let teams react to us. We're not going to react to them. Let them react to our big lineup. And Utah saw that the other day, starting a 6'5" center. Joe Ingles tried to get Jared out of there. He kept his cool. This is just a thing of beauty, watching the big man of the Cavaliers.
Mark Munch Bishop from 1350 AM, The Gambler, as well as News Radio, WTAM 1100. As always, Munch, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
It is my pleasure, and I can't wait to watch the rest of the show, my friend.
All right, have a good one. Mark Munch Bishop. Remember, you can listen to him 1350 AM, The Gambler, as well as on News Radio, WTAM 1100. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will welcome in Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast, talking some Browns. We'll also get back and talk a little bit more Cavs. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. Dave Bacon, a little under the weather, so doing this one from home. We're going to head to listen in on what Chris Sims has to say about Baker Mayfield and the Browns. This is from NBC Sports Pro Football Talk. Here's Chris Sims.
We saw little snippets this year of some good play. It's been there to at least justify, hey, we'll bring him back. There's talent. He has a big right arm. There's no doubt he's got some leadership skills. We know that too. There's some moxie and some fire about him. Like when he gets knocked out of bounds and he gets up and goes first down with a hurt shoulder. Like you could see the team likes him and rallies around him from that standpoint. But no way do you give him a long-term deal. So, again, I don't know if this means they bring in another quarterback to compete with him a little bit. If they open it up with Case Keenum just to light a fire under his butt to a degree. But I understand them bringing him back for another year and evaluating this. You don't let him go unless something just falls in your lap, like a Russell Wilson again or a Deshaun Watson, to where then you go, okay, well, they're offering this to get him. We can do that. We'll take that. But I don't think they're just going to throw him off the ship for nothing.
Let's welcome in Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. And Kevin, that makes a whole lot of sense. I have said, everybody that says they want to move on from Baker Mayfield, tell me what you're moving to.
There's not many options. You and Munch were talking about it. You went through that list. That's exactly why, or one of the reasons why this front office is not putting forth the notion that there's any sort of sense of moving on from Baker Mayfield. So, and again, why would you? I understand that people have an issue with how he played this year. There is no excuse for it. Yes, there's the injury, but decision-making was skeptical. Catching the ball was skeptical. At times, play calling was skeptical. We've gone through it so many different times, you and I, Dave, on this show about all the issues with this offense, specifically for the Browns. But if you're going to, look at who's available out there, unless something drastic happens. Usually I only listen to, if they have a last name of Sims, I'm only listening to Phil Sims. But with Chris Sims and some of the things he said, he's right. You're not moving on unless something falls into your lap that is astronomical and just a deal that you can't pass up.
Yeah, and it's probably not out there to happen. All right, let's turn our attention to the wide receiver position. I said earlier with Munch, I think that was one of the more disappointing positions. If quarterback was 1, wide receiver was 1A, and there's a lot of reasons for it. They need to upgrade. Let's take a look at some of the names on the wide receiver position that are available. And there's some levels here. I don't think you're going to get a Devontae Adams. I certainly know you're not getting an Odell Beckham Jr. He cured that. When you look at this list, who are some guys that intrigue you that you think might fit?
I mean, look at a guy like Chris Godwin or Zay Jones, even Emmanuel Sanders being kind of that veteran leader within that room. But that's a guy that the Buffalo Bills don't even need right now, honestly. So if you're going to look at this wide receiver list, will this team even invest that much money? They may go get kind of a second tier wide receiver off that free agent list, but they're not going to invest a lot of money because you've just had 2 guys wrapping up $30 million in cap. And they feel pretty good. And even Andrew Berry said this week that they feel pretty good about where their cap situation is at. I don't see that the high-end guys, and even if you mention a guy like Chris Godwin, he's probably going to be a guy that whether Tampa Bay is able to keep him or he goes somewhere else, he's going to garner a good amount of money, but he's also been hurt. It's the same thing with Baker Mayfield. Once these guys start getting hurt, they stay hurt. So if you address the wide receivers, but you only do it one way, free agency or draft, and you got guys that have that injury history, Now you still have those question marks about a position that you're coming into an offseason where that is the biggest question mark. What have we seen from this front office since they started with Andrew Berry coming in as the actual GM? All the question marks, all the needs, or the main need that fans talk about, media talks about throughout the year, they end up addressing that, whether through a free agency or the draft, and they do it a way that fits for this team or the way that they want this organization to run.
Yeah, and I would say some of the names to look for on that list would be like a Cedric Wilson, guys that are 3 or 4 wide receivers in pass-heavy offenses like the Cowboys. Kirk would be another one. Christian Kirk may get a little bit bigger of a deal than they want to do. Sanders is intriguing. Emmanuel Sanders is a guy that played in 49ers, so he knows what the system is for wide receivers. That's a reason that he intrigues me. So I think you're looking at guys like that, bigger targets. They're not going to be the super names that blow everybody away, but you don't need that. You need guys that will get separation and can get open in this offensive system.
The guys you want to target, if you're going to get the guys that are going to have a bigger impact on here, you want good guys in your locker room through free agency. But in terms of wide receiver, they need to address that. In my opinion, they need to address that through the draft. And there are plenty of guys, whether we are Homer fans here in Ohio, and we look at the 2 Ohio State wide receivers in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. You also have the dynamic duo down at Alabama. And I know Jameson Williams is with the torn ACL. But a team is going to take a chance on him because he is a first-round talent. And you have Treylon Burks out of Arkansas, who's another guy that a lot of people are looking at. So there is a deeper wide receiver class, especially at the front end in the first 3 rounds, where this team can address that and get some playmakers, kind of similar to the blueprint a little bit with what Cincinnati is doing and why they're so successful. They just so happen to get a great wide receiver in Jamar Chase, who has already played with their quarterback, their franchise quarterback down there in Cincinnati.
Kevan Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will take a look at some free agents that the Browns should re-sign. We'll also look a little deeper into that second tier of free agent wide receivers. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Dave Bacon feeling a little under the weather. Good enough to do this from home, though. Let's take a look at 4 Browns that the Browns need to re-sign. 4 free agents. This is according to Dog Pound Daily. And when you look at it, they say David Njoku, Jadeveon Clowney, Anthony Walker, MJ Stewart. I think Clowney is probably number 1 in my mind. I like Njoku. I really think MJ Stewart showed up this year in particular. I know he played well last year. I think he took that next level. That's a guy that's legitimately an NFL starter, I think.
MJ Stewart's kind of that dark horse to, somebody you want to talk about bringing back to this team, especially with the injuries that the back end of this defense went through. They didn't suffer too much because guys stepped up. They had that true next man up mentality. So, your main 2 are going to be Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, with Greedy Williams as kind of that first rotational guy. I think Greg Newsome showed enough this year to kind of maybe take over that number 2 role, but that may go back and forth between him and Greedy if Greedy can stay healthy. But again, if he can stay healthy, it seems like that's what we say about a lot of these guys in the back end. If you got a guy like MJ Stewart, and even coming into the safety position, we had a lot of injuries. A guy that can be versatile, but also play in that defensive backfield in a passing league like MJ Stewart did, you definitely want him. And Dave, I totally agree with you. I would put Jadeveon Clowney at top of that list because he did exactly what this team expected and what we talked about in the offseason before the 2021 season. Help Myles Garrett. Can he make it easier on him? And I think he did, and especially towards the end of the year, he got, just about 10 sacks himself.
Yeah, and again, the more you put those two together, I think the better they're going to be. I'm not against bringing Anthony Walker back. It'll be interesting to see what kind of interest he gets. He was banged up early. He didn't have the type of impact I really thought he would on this Browns defense, to be honest with you. I thought he was good. I thought he would be more impactful than he was.
The speech that Darius Leonard gave from the Colts when Anthony Walker signed here, that's what kind of really drew me into Anthony Walker, because a guy that's the number one guy in that defense for the Colts, being that so open and so genuine and just forthright about how he felt about that guy, it just seemed like we were bringing in the right type of leader and a guy that hadn't got an opportunity to show off or show out. Injuries, just like for a lot of guys on this team, hurt him this year. Linebackers seems to be always a question mark for this team. You don't want to lose depth there, but if you can, maybe Anthony Walker goes, but you find another guy like that has a little bit more productivity for you next year, you're not losing too much. But Jadeveon Clowney, Njoku, MJ Stewart, those three, you lose those guys. Now you're losing something that was a productive piece for you throughout the year.
All right, let's take a look at the affordable wide receivers on the free agent class. These are four of them that think the Browns should seriously look at signing. And they have number one, Juju Smith-Schuster. I got a hard pass on that one. I don't think they want any. He's a talented guy. I don't think you want any part of that in the locker room. Christian Kirk, I think, is going to price himself out of that. I'm interested in Cedric Wilson and DJ Chark Jr. Those two intrigue me.
Yeah, those two at the bottom of those four would be probably more maybe affordable for this team, what they're looking for if they go the wide receiver route in free agency. I couldn't help but laugh when you were saying a hard pass on Juju. And it's not anything about this Browns and Steelers rivalry. Yes, as fans, we don't like Pittsburgh. We don't want to see their players do well against us. But we also respect when these organizations that we're trying to mimic or be like and have sustained success. When they have good players, you respect what they do as just a general sports fan. Juju Smith-Schuster he's even been an issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and usually they don't have players that are issues. The TikTok, the mentality, it doesn't seem all bought into what they're trying to do or what their culture is about. And that's not a guy that you want to bring into a culture that's still in its framework. It's not even, you don't have the full foundation of that yet, especially after this year taking a step or a few backwards.
All I'll say on that is if you can't play for Mike Tomlin, I don't know who the heck you can play for. Kevin Arnold and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to turn our attention to the Cavs. Cavs playing very well. They'll wrap up a West Coast trip back-to-backs tonight and tomorrow. And they could end up with an outstanding West Coast trip. More on that, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back talking Cavs after this timeout.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast and I turn our attention to the Cavs. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Ricky Rubio.
Hi, I have an interesting question. I've been really impressed with the Cavs this year, but I'm really thinking, what are the chances that they're going to make an offer that Ricky Rubio cannot refuse that'll keep him around for the next 3 to 4 years? I'm really thinking that he's the best one to be that spark plug for the team. So I hope they keep him and they don't let him go through their fingers. Thank you.
All right, Kevin Arnold, this is a tricky situation. I think they were in extension talks when he got injured. The challenge for them is his $17.8 million contract is a huge trade asset that they can probably use to get a younger guy, kind of a fringy young core type guy that can score. So it's one of their most valuable trade assets. So that's the balancing act that Kobe Altman is doing right now.
And to be honest, when I first started listening to that voicemail, I wasn't sure. I didn't know that that's where it was going. I thought maybe talking about Ricky Rubio, just like what you just said, Dave, that trade asset for this team. And unfortunately, you know, professional sports is still a business. And this team, Ricky Rubio, we wish him all the best in his recovery. But he's also, you know, an asset for this team to try to get better and continue to make this playoff push that they are. They're in the 6th seed. They're playing well on a West Coast trip. And yes, Rajon Rondo has been dealing with some soft tissue injuries over the last couple of games, but he has been with the team. So they're building that kind of chemistry. And there's a reason why Kobe Altman worked so swiftly to get another veteran point guard in here that they hope can have a similar impact. I love Ricky Rubio. And if he was still healthy and still doing the things that he wanted to do, or he was able to do for this team right now, I would definitely be on board with at least having the conversation about bringing a guy like that back or keeping him if you can. But he is a trade asset and one of the few assets that this team may have, or most intriguing assets that this team kind of has. So it's gonna be a balancing act. And if they they're able to impact their wing position, which is where I think they need to look at, Ricky Rubio is probably going to be a piece that leaves, unfortunately. And I love him just like that voicemailer does, but we have to understand the business side. And if this team wants to take strides forward, that may be a piece that leaves.
And the other thing to keep in mind is he's 33, 34, and he's going to be coming off an ACL. So that is a tough injury to come back from when you're younger. The older you get, the tougher it is to come back from that. So again, I loved Ricky Rubio when they made the trade. I saw where they were going, and it was even better than I thought it was. You mentioned the young wing player. Who are some names that you like if they can add? And do you want them to be younger guys in that 25, 26, 27, or older guys in that 32, 33? Munch and I had talked. I think there's huge value to them getting to a playoff series just so these young 21, 22, 23-year-old core guys see what playoff basketball is all about.
Well, and that's where your guys' experience lends to guys like me. They're trying to get in the industry, learning from you guys, because you guys Munch actually stole the main guy I was going to talk about today, was Buddy Hield. That's a guy that, could add some shooting depth to this team. I mean, they're 15th in 3-point shooting. Now, that's not bad, but it's also not amongst the playoff teams that are in those top 8 or even sometimes 10 seeds in these conferences right now. So you definitely need to stretch the floor when you got big guys in the middle. Those guys have shown the ability, with Mobley and Allen, to defend on the wing too. But I think a young wing player like a Karis LeVert or a Buddy Hield or someone like that, if they can find him. I think Cam Reddish would have been an option, but of course now he's in New York and he's teamed up with his former Duke teammate RJ Barrett with the Knicks. So, I think you got to go younger than older, like you guys talked about earlier. And boy, the point you guys made about this team getting into the playoff series, whether it's the play-in, but really at this point, the way that they're playing, you want to see them bye for having to skip over that play-in and get at least 4 games, if not more, when the lights are brightest. Every single time this team is able to learn and continue to win and grow and just build on this culture where it's not one guy every single night or the same guy every single night, the more impactful that the development, and you can expedite the development of this team to becoming a contender in this conference again, like they once were when we had that one guy. I think now you got a group of guys, and that can be so important in this league now too.
Kevin Arnold from the Voice of the Land podcast. Kevin, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Dave, and I wish you all the best getting healthy.
All right, appreciate it. Kevin Arnold, make sure you listen to him, Voice of the Land podcast. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday, 4 o'clock Stay safe. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you Monday at 4 o'clock on Sports4CLE.